I'm Gordon Howie. I'm a candidate for United States Senate from South Dakota. And we're here to spend the next half hour with you talking about issues that are important to you and your fellow South Dakotans. My friend Nick Reid is here, and Nick, you're going to interrogate me in front of all these people.
That's right. That's what I do best.
All right, well, fire away.
I know over our time traveling around the state in these last several weeks, we've had a lot of questions from people out there, and that's really what we wanted to go over today. I know that a lot of the viewers have seen you and the Life and Liberty program. A lot of people know you and understand who you are. But I want to go back a little bit to your time coming into politics. You spent a few terms in the House and a term in the Senate here in the state of South Dakota. What actually led you into going into politics to begin with?
Well, you know, I really didn't aspire to be some kind of a political activist. But back in I think it was 2004, 2005, somewhere in that time frame, then Governor Mike Rounds vetoed the first abortion ban. And as a concerned citizen and a defender of the unborn, that bothered me considerably, to the point where it pushed me over the edge, and I said, you know, I have to go see if I can make a difference. So I ran for office, spent 2 terms in the House, and then 1 term in the Senate.
In 2010, if I remember correctly, you were actually the only Republican senator to vote against then Governor Rounds' budget. What made you make that decision?
Well, it wasn't a very hard decision to make, really, because that budget spent over $10 million in additional taxpayer dollars over the previous year and led to the $127 million deficit that he left the state. So I'll admit it was a little bit lonesome being the only Republican senator to vote against it, but it was the right thing to do, and I think history's proven that out, Nick.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Governor Rounds says that he didn't leave a deficit at all, that actually as governor he was required to balance the budget and didn't leave with a deficit.
Well, you know, the whole issue of balancing budgets is something of a smoke and mirror performance. And our current governor says there was a $127 million deficit that he had to take care of. So I would just ask who's telling the truth here. I know I voted against the bill that led to the $127 million deficit. I know that, and I know what the current governor is saying about what he had to do to take care of the deficit.
So what is it that brings you into this race for U.S. Senate?
Well, you know, a lot of people have asked me, why are you in this race? Because it's a little unusual for 4 people to be vying for a South Dakota seat in the United States Senate. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you very simply, I looked around at the field of candidates, and I want someone who will represent my values. I think that makes me like a lot of you who are watching today. South Dakota is a state that is renowned for conservative values. And as I looked at the candidates, I did my own evaluation. I'll share a little bit of it with you and our viewers. I looked at Rick Weiland and Larry Pressler, and I know they both voted for Barack Obama, and one of them financially contributed to Senator Reid. In my mind, that disqualifies them from representing my conservative values. I'm sorry, but I just, you know, what else can you say? Then I looked at the former governor, and I looked at his record. He left the state with a huge deficit, increased our taxes. He nearly doubled the state budget and added a lot of positions to the state government. Mm-hmm. So I looked at him, and then I reviewed the fact that he vetoed the first abortion ban. And as a legislator, he voted against parental notification to parents of a minor girl getting an abortion. Add that to his support for federal control of education through Common Core and other things. And I'm sorry, but in my mind, that disqualified him from representing my conservative values. My record is very clear. My life inside and out of politics has been very clear. I don't just say I represent conservative traditional values. My record shows that I believe it.
As a lifelong Republican, though, why are you running as an independent?
Well, the reason I'm running as an independent is that I circulated petitions to get on the ballot as an independent. And I said, if the Republicans nominate a conservative, I will withdraw, because I don't need this personally. This is something I think our country needs. We need representation by someone who shares our conservative traditional values. And when the Republican Party nominated someone because they had the most money and the conservative vote was fractured, I said, well, I'm not going to withdraw, because that was my pledge. If the Republican Party nominated a conservative, I'd withdraw. I am a lifelong Republican. I have not left the Republican platform. In fact, I'm the only one in this race who supports it.
Well, and on that note, I know that this campaign, and a lot of campaigns right now around the country, are really speaking towards character, the character of the politicians. I mean, we have, as you said, we have two people running in this that voted for Barack Obama. One that has stirred up quite a scandal with the EB-5, and we can get to that either later in this program or to another one. But what, in your opinion, what role does it play in politics today?
Well, character seems to me to be everything, because we've sent the smartest men and women we know to Washington, D.C. to solve our problems. And I'd ask, how's that working out for us? I'd suggest not too well. I believe we have failed in that regard because we have not sent men and women who are people who believe in the fundamental basic integrity that the principles of our Judeo-Christian history articulates. And until and unless we have a Congress that has a majority of men and women that embody the principles of our founding fathers, we're going to continue going in the wrong direction.
Okay, and as far as this election is going, like I'd said, the EB-5 scandal has come up, again and again, and doesn't seem to be going away because our ex-governor doesn't seem to want to answer any questions about it. What role do you think that will play in the election, and what role ought it play with voters out there?
Well, I'd sooner talk about what ought to be happening. And what should be happening is that former Governor Rounds should agree to testify under oath to either clear this whole thing up or at least answer all of our questions. It seems like there are new questions, new revelations every day. We learned the other day that there was a $30 million loan from an anonymous Cayman Islands group at 29% interest. We learned that Joop Ballen, who is up to his eyeballs in this thing, his attorney is a campaign contributor to Governor Rounds. And I believe South Dakota deserves straight talk. And you can't have straight talk if you don't show up, if you won't answer questions.
Well, Governor Rounds has said that he didn't know anything about Joop Ballen and his going to the starting the SDRC or anything that happened there. He had no idea what was going on with Joop Ballen.
Well, I would just say President Barack Obama will look in the camera, and whether he's on teleprompter or not on teleprompter, and he will say, well, this is the first I've heard about it. I heard about it on the news. I don't believe our president has told us the truth. And I believe it's time for state officials to come clean and have some straight talk with South Dakota.
Well, I know Governor Dugard has said that he wasn't there for the whole situation.
The whole thing, I don't even like to spend a lot of time on it, but it troubles me that this is a program that they're still doubling down on, saying it's a wonderful thing for South Dakota. If it's so wonderful, why will you not share the information with South Dakota voters? And so I'm a little weary of it, frankly, Nick, and I think South Dakota voters are finding themselves a little disgusted that there's this cloak of secrecy, and some Republican leaders are refusing to even subpoena Joop Ballen to testify. For heaven's sakes, let's clear this thing up. And wouldn't it be great if voters would be able to see the truth, for better or for worse, before this election?
It seems to me that someone may be afraid of the truth coming out.
Well, I don't think the South Dakota voting public is afraid of the truth. They deserve the truth.
So let's move on to national issues. As a senator, what would be Senator Howie's number one domestic issue?
Well, that's a little bit tough because there are a number of things that are pretty important. But one of the best places to start would be restoring fiscal responsibility to our nation's capital. We have a government that doesn't have a lid on the debt ceiling. We're approaching $18 trillion in debt. We have $120 to $140 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and there's no lid. There's no limit. They continue to spend like there's no tomorrow, and so that's got to be job number one. We have to return fiscal sanity to the halls of Congress. And a great place to start would be in the United States Senate. And a close second to that would be our national security. I think our political leaders on both sides of the aisle, this is not a Democrat-Republican issue. Both of them have failed us in those regards.
How do you bring people to the table to address those things? This is not a new issue, particularly with the spending. I would say particularly over the last 6 years. How do you make inroads there? How do you bring people to the table to start talking about those things?
Well, you have to set limits on spending and limits on the national debt, because until you have limits, if there's no limit, there's no need for fiscal restraint. We will never get the politicians in Washington, D.C. to cut spending and reduce debt and prioritize things until we have put a limit on them.
Okay. And as far as the border is concerned, what is your suggestion as far as national security or the border?
Before we deal with that, let me just say one more issue regarding the fiscal side of this discussion is that in order for us to make any headway on the matters of our national debt, we need people who are more concerned about the next generation than their next election. Mm-hmm. And frankly, the next election has been the focus of party leaders on both sides of the aisle, and they're not willing to spend their political capital and risk their political necks. We need men and women like our founding fathers who literally put their lives on the line. They weren't worrying about political expediency. They were worrying about what's good for America, what's right, what's just. And those are the kind of men and women we need in the United States Senate. Mm-hmm. Now, on to your issue about immigration and securing our border. We cannot maintain our national security interests in this country if we do not first protect the homeland. And the way to do that is to protect and secure the border. Nick, I find it very interesting that the United States-Mexican border is secure if you're going south. One man accidentally goes across the border and is immediately incarcerated. And our president is apparently too busy on the third green to get him back. But if you look at that same border coming to the north, we've let hundreds of thousands of men, women, terrorist-connected people come in without any documentation. We don't know where they are. We don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. One thing I believe we can be certain of is that many of them do not wish America well. We need to secure the border. That should be a primary objective. It isn't that America is not great enough to secure our borders. It's that the people we've sent to Washington, D.C. do not have the political will, and again, they're more concerned about the next election than the next generation. I would not be one of those people. I would insist that before we have any discussion about immigration reform, our borders must be secure.
Well, sort of in line with that, I know one of the things that you have talked about in being in the State House and the State Senate is the expansion of government in the state. Now, how does that idea transfer as far as nationally or to the federal government?
Well, you can learn a lot about someone by looking in the rearview mirror. History does indeed tell us something. And if you look at the history of the other candidates in this race, their history betrays what they're telling us. We hear one of them say, I'm going to get big government out of South Dakota, when in fact he introduced it to South Dakota, nearly doubling the state budget and all the rest. So we have to listen to what people say and weigh it against what they have done. And again, my record is pretty clear. I don't just talk about those issues. I have stood, and sometimes stood alone, when I believed it was the right thing to do. And so the only way we're going to restrain the federal government is if we send someone who has a record of standing against growth of state government.
But how do you expand the economy without the stimulus that the federal government has put forward?
And I would just say that Democrats and Republicans actually agree on something. If you go back to JFK and then look at Ronald Reagan, they had a significant point of agreement. And this is it. They knew how to grow the economy without growing government. They reduced taxes. First, JFK did it. He reduced taxes and the economy lifted. It grew, it expanded, and it flourished. Then we see a period of weak leadership. Along comes Ronald Reagan. He does the same thing. He reduces taxes and the economy recovers. Now we have a leader who behaves more like an emperor, and he wants to go circumvent Congress on every issue, and he's intent on controlling people and expanding government. And he doesn't mind raising your taxes, Nick. As part of that process, he doesn't mind telling you how you're going to educate your children and all the rest. It's a government growing mindset. And if we send men and women who have that mindset, why would we expect we'd get anything different?
Well, and that's a perfect segue into what do you see as the federal government's role in education?
Well, the federal government's role, very frankly, should be to get out of the way. Parents and teachers are the best people to determine what we need to do to educate our children. The federal government and Common Core and all those dictates is little more than an effort orchestrated by bureaucrats, both Republican and Democrat, to engineer an indoctrination of our children so as to seize control of the political agenda and the next generation. And frankly, moms and dads know best what their son and daughter needs. Teachers know best how to communicate that education to our children. Let's get control back on a local level where it really makes some sense.
But don't we need national standards in order to be able to gauge and weigh out what is happening across the country?
Well, the national standard should be that parents and teachers know best.
Okay. One thing I know that has come up a lot, and we'll stick to domestic issues, and I think I know exactly where you stand on this, and a lot of viewers probably know this too, is the issue of guns and gun control in society. And with all of the shootings that are happening in schools and everything that is going on, things that are happening in Colorado, and the federal government and state governments beginning to clamp down on that. What's your feeling on the gun control issue in this country?
It's easy to find yourself being politically incorrect. And frankly, I find myself in that position frequently. But on the issue of gun control, the Second Amendment is clear that we have the right to bear arms. And in fact, as you read the Second Amendment, you'll discover that it is to protect us from a tyrannical government. Not that we're going to take our shotguns into the street, but a government its people, where the people fear government. The Second Amendment is significant to maintaining our freedom, Nick.
So, as you have been out on the campaign trail and out around the state, I know that there are a lot of people saying, a lot of pundits and things like that, saying that that Gordon Howie is an afterthought in this race, that people are looking past you. I know that there have been a number of polls that have been put out, many by the Mike Rounds camp and by the Republican Party, that essentially say, would you vote for Mike Rounds, Larry Pressler, Rick Weiland, or other? So, what are you hearing out there on the trail?
Well, first let me say, I'm other. And so when we go across the state, Nick, and you and I have conversations with people, what we're hearing is there's a general dissatisfaction. When we look back to the primary in the Republican race for this nomination, we see that about half of the voting Republicans said, somebody else, anybody else. Well, I'm anybody else. And frankly, we're seeing that support for the traditional candidates is very thin. Now, the polling data that we see, if we were focused on polls, we would probably be disheartened, but I'm anything but discouraged. I'm just looking back recently. Eric Cantor is a name that might be familiar to some people. His internal polling the day before the election showed him at 75%. He should have been hands down the winner, and he lost in one of the most significant upsets in this election cycle. Now, I believe this race is going to be won in the home stretch, and that's why we need your help. As you're listening, we need you. If you agree with some of the things that we're talking about here today, we need you to share this video. And Nick, you'll have some things to pass along how people can share, because it's important that people hear from every candidate. So we choose the candidate that most closely aligns to our individual values. And the people that we're seeing across South Dakota confirm to me that we line up with their values. And that's why I'm confident that on the day when we cast our ballots, Gordon Howie will be the next United States Senator from South Dakota. And this isn't a seat that I will own, it's a seat the people of South Dakota will once again own.
When you're standing in the face of a candidate who claims to have $9 million, how does an independent candidate get past that?
You do that the same way you would run government. You put it on a budget. We have a very limited budget, and we're doing a lot with a little, Nick. And frankly, it's things like this television broadcast where we have an opportunity to share openly with people. And I think in future programs, we're going to be answering questions from those of you who are listening. It's the opportunity to talk directly to the people of South Dakota. When they get straight talk from someone in a race like this, they listen. And I'm not going on a listening tour to find out what I should believe. I'm going on a campaign to tell folks what I believe, who I am. And if that lines up with what you believe, then I'm asking for your support.
So as we're winding down here, is there a final thought you'd like to leave with the viewers and the people of South Dakota?
Well, yes. You know, the political pundits, the power brokers would tell you that a vote for Gordon Howie is somehow a wasted vote, and that somehow the world as we know it will end if you vote for Gordon Howie. I believe they're right in this sense. The world as we know it politically will end indeed, because I will not be more of the same. Nick, if our listeners today are interested in a voice for change, then I'm suggesting I'm that voice. And I won't be bashful about it. I won't be intimidated. I won't be harassed or harangued. I will be a voice for the people of South Dakota. And I won't be someone who goes to the United States Senate to serve leadership. I'll go to the United States Senate to serve God and country.
Well, this is an extremely important thing that we're doing here, being able to speak to the voters straight up. I know that there's at least one candidate who is spending a lot of time hiding somewhere because he won't come to the debates, and he makes very few public appearances. Is there anything that you have to say to the voters and to the people out there as far as being accessible and being in front of people?
Well, my accessibility during this campaign has been very simple. I'll go anywhere, anytime, talk to anyone about anything. And I believe that's the attitude that candidates need to have and public servants need to have. I could be doing other things than running for the United States Senate, but I've chosen to do that because I believe politics was never intended to be a career, Nick. It should be a calling. It should be something you have a passion for, and it should be something that calls you to a higher sense of purpose. And I believe that's what I am suggesting to you as you're listening today. We need your help to return to that foundation of faith, freedom, and purpose. If you believe, as I do, that it's time to turn this country back to the things that made it great to begin with, then I'm asking you to join me. And Nick, maybe you can tell these folks how they can find us.
Well, there are a couple of things that you can do. First of all, you can find our Facebook page. You can like our Facebook page, read the posts that are put on there, and share them with your friends, because the more the word gets out, the more the message gets out, the stronger it will be for Gordon, for the campaign, and for the people of South Dakota, and ultimately for the people of this nation.
And don't forget the donate part.
I was getting to that. Okay. You can also go to GordonHowieForSenate.com. There are a number of videos that we continue to do that will be uploaded. This program will also be on there. You can share it with your friends. And there is a button where you can hit that button and donate to the campaign. Help us push this forward. Help us get this message out. And help us reclaim what is quickly being lost in this nation.
Nick, if I could just wrap up, I'd like to share just a final thought.
Please
I feel
do.
like the pastor who's on his third or fourth closing here.
Right.
But as you're listening today, I would just tell you that we do indeed need your help. We're looking for locations for yard signs. We're looking for people who would be willing to help share literature, distribute information. And so if you'll get a hold of us through our Facebook page or our website, we're really interested in talking with you. We need your help, and we believe there's hope for America, Nick. I believe that a great America needs God, and a great America needs statesmen and stateswomen who are willing to stand up and sacrifice personally, but do it for the good of this generation and the generation to come. Thank you for watching, and God bless you, and God bless America.